Now joining us from Yenagoa to discuss the oil spill and its devastating impact on Basambiri and neighboring communities is King Bubaraye Dakolo, the Ebenanana Owe of Ekpetiama Kingdom in Bayelsa State. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you today?
Very well, thank you, sir.
Your Royal Highness, thank you for joining us. We just watched that sobering report on the situation in Nembe and surrounding communities following the problem with the wellhead at the Santa Barbara River. What's your assessment of the situation? The affected company, the owners of the wellhead, they say they are making efforts, that they are even trying to get international experts, that they have engaged boots and coots, but this has gone on for about 3 weeks. What's the situation at this moment?
It is a shame and very unfortunate that a thing like this should be happening in the year 2021. I well know that we have about 159 oil fields and 8,481 wells that are producing. But there are thousands of wells that are not producing. And they're just out there like landmines that are going to explode any day. And this one has erupted and is poisoning people for 22 days now, non-stop. It is crude oil and gas combined, high pressure, high velocity crude oil that is not stopped by the boom. It is flowing past the boom long ago and polluting the entire area. The response is a big shame because it is too slow. 22 days and they are still thinking about getting someone from somewhere means that they are not ready for the business. But I'm not surprised. This has been the attitude of almost every oil company in this part of the world. They do not care about the livelihood and welfare of the people. If they had, they would have been prepared ab initio, because this will keep happening. Old rusty wellheads, abandoned wellheads, you must have seen the videos. That wellhead has no protection whatsoever. There is not fenced, there is no security, it is just open for the elements. And now, do you know what they are saying? They are looking at sabotage. Why should that be the first thing? Instead of showing empathy and saving lives, they are talking about sabotage so that you put it on the defenseless people of the place. I feel so bad. I feel so terrible that this thing will be happening in 2021. But I'm happy that with social media, the world is now seeing the shame and the vile of the oil industry. How the Niger Delta people have been abused and have suffered for decades on end.
Thank you, Your Royal Majesty. I'm looking at the incident brief here, which, as Dr. Abati mentioned, Boots and Coots was mentioned there, and Kenyan International West Africa Company. It says here that they have been engaged for assessment and well kill. I'd like your comment on that. Should they be assessed after a disaster has happened? Should they not have already been assessed, employed as some kind of a backup to swing into action immediately? That's my first question. My second question, sir, is that after a disaster, then we must talk about compensation. What kind of compensation has the community received, and from whom?
Okay, so let me start from the last question. So far, the evidence is that some few bags of rice and Indomie noodles have been brought for those communities. And I know that is happening because the oil industry major operators do not live there. They feel that those who are living there are people who are fit enough for just Indomie noodles. That's why they've done that. So no compensation has been talked about. As a matter of fact, the objective is to avoid a proper compensation. That's why they are talking about accessing what may have caused it at this stage instead of trying to prevent the leak. So at the end of the day, they will say somebody from somewhere in the village came and tampered with the exposed wellhead, and that is why there was a blowout, and so they should pay nothing. That is the usual gimmick. But the argument here is, even if, as King of Ekpetiama Kingdom, is responsible for tampering with that particular wellhead, does it mean that my children should suffer? Does it mean that my wife should suffer? Does it mean that other persons in the community should suffer? As a business concern, they are supposed to be ready from beginning. Like I said before in my opening remarks, you have taken over a particular field. You have assets and liabilities. There are wells that are producing, and there are wells that are not producing. These wells were not drilled yesterday. They were drilled decades ago, so they are old. You are supposed to be prepared like a scout boy from the beginning. That is if you cared about the people in the area at all. But this evidence is showing that they care nothing more than just the petrodollars. And that is why they are looking for whether is it Mills and Booms or somebody else to come and do assessment at this stage. They are supposed to be ready. They are supposed to be ready for this type of eventuality. As a matter of fact, this type of eventuality was not supposed to arise in the first place if they were prepared. So they are not prepared, they don't care. All they want is money, money, money. And that is why it is taking 22 days. And perhaps it may go on. A few years ago, we had one that went on for 68 days nonstop. 68 days. And let me tell you, I wrote a book titled The Riddle of the Oil Thief. There are about 5 chapters that are relevant here. The one that has to do with this type of incident is clear that the oil industry deliberately does this getting serious, not serious, just doing this type of game, just allow the spill to go on for a while so that they have things to claim, so they have a bigger contract for fixing it, a bigger contract for cleaning up, a bigger contract for doing all of these. They are the ones who usually arrange for this type of tampering because at the end of the day, someone smiles to the bank. And the objective here is to smile to the bank at the end of the day and not about the people.
Thank you so much, Your Royal Highness. How far would you pursue this? Because you said there was another spill that lasted for 68 days. I'd like to know, have they paid compensation for the former one? You know, did you take them to court? What level did it get? Okay.
Yes, this was not, the last one I'm talking about is not about AITEO. It's about Shell at Agoro in 2018. They've not paid anything. They've even agreed that it wasn't sabotage, that it was out of their own equipment failure because of rusty pipes and wellheads and so on and so forth. But they've not paid anything. They usually want to run away from payment by accusing the vulnerable, voiceless people. We're even lucky that today with social media, people can see it and talk about it. I saw some videos earlier, and then the management of AITEO was saying it was gas, 15% gas, 15% oil and 80% gas. 15% of what? What's the volume of reserve in that place? So 15% of 1 million barrels is a lot of barrels that are going out. And that field has a capacity for 220,000 barrels every day. If you multiply that by the amount of dollars that it is sold for, a barrel is sold for, by 500 naira, you can see the number of billions that that place produces. And then look at the environment. Are you not seeing the communities and the people? How vulnerable they are. How no one takes them into cognizance.
All right.
Why Nostra is not there? Because they don't have. Yes, please.
Okay, so like I want to say, how far are you going to push this? You know, because you just made the calculation. You said that place will do 250,000 BPD per day. And if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, if that's Bonny Light, I know Bonny Light sells like $5 more than Brent. So it's not even the price of Brent. It is even more than Brent. And I know Bonny Light is plus or minus $5 more than Brent.
Yes.
So that's a colossal amount of money coming out of there. It's a big wellhead.
Exactly.
So how far are you going to push this?
Yes.
Where are you going to get justice? Because justice has to be done to the people. And like you said, not just one cup of rice.
Yes. Anyway, I believe that particularly the key persons in Nembe LGA may go as far as going to court. In the past, a couple of matters have been won in court, I think some in Benin and some in The Hague and so on and so forth. But it takes a lot. These guys are just so smart. They have all the resources for all these decades, so they weaponize the resources against the people. So when you go to court, they even jubilate. They are happy. Because they take the process through for 10 or 20 years. When you win at the High Court, they take it to appeal and ensure that it's frustrated for another 10, 20 years. And then when you win at the appeal, they go to the Supreme and ensure that somehow they get it. So you don't get it in your lifetime. So it is so frustrating. And you can see the people who are closest to the wellhead there. Are they having the capacity to take this thing to anywhere beyond just shouting the way they did? So you can see how vulnerable we've been. These resources have been taken from the bottom of the bowels of our land for too long without having us have commensurate quantities or amounts of the petrodollars. So it is difficult. But I think that with the Enlightenment and with people like you out there, you will help with making sure that this issue is always talked about until justice is done. Until we talked about it last week or so, there was no compensation. I mean, there was no palliatives. It was when we talked about it and you aired it on our rice that they now came for face saving and they brought some few cups of rice and a few packets of Indomie to come and embarrass themselves before the Nembe people. I think that is a shame. You're supposed to have shown a sufficient empathy. And then, of course, the emphasis is who caused it. They want to get to the bottom of it. What is the bottom? Stop the pollution first and foremost before you talk about bottom. Well, don't you know that you have a bottom to sort out before you came to take off that thing from Shell?
Well, Your Highness, we've been talking about the oil company, AITEO. But where is government in all of this? There's an oil spill detection and recovery agency, Nostra. Now, has there been anybody coming around from Nostra or from the Bayelsa State Ministry of Environment? And as the Minister of State for Petroleum, Timi Presiva, who is from that state, has he also shown any interest in this matter? And is anybody talking about how to clean up the spill? Because that could be another phase of it. Yes. After the wellhead is secured, you could still have this crisis running into years ahead. And you keep hearing that there will be the Nembe cleanup. There will be the Nembe cleanup. What do you say to all of this?
In my book, I think chapter 17 of The Riddle of the Oil Thief talks about abracadabra. Abracadabra is the gimmick that is played by the oil industry when it comes to cleaning up, when it comes to trying to conceal. I can't hear you anymore, Ruben Abati, however. I believe you're hearing me. So when it comes to cleaning up, they just try to conceal the evidence so that people like you, the press, and those environmentalists like us who are interested in getting to the bottom will not have any evidence to show anybody. They don't do any cleanup. In terms of those who have been there, Nostra say they do not have the resources to do what is supposed to be done. So they are not well funded and they're a federal government agency. Unfortunately, the oil and gas is a federal government business from 1969, entirely federal government business. And so they are supposed to do the cleaning up. They are supposed to ensure that they regulate. But what you are seeing is the evidence of how beautiful and how well and how nice their regulation has been. If they were regulating properly, this wouldn't happen. In places where regulation works, you don't see this. So Nostra has not done much for anyone to applaud them. We've not seen the Federal Ministry of Petroleum. We've not seen the Petroleum Minister. We've not seen this Minister of State Petroleum as well, as far as this matter is concerned. Bayelsa State has been there before. Bayelsa State has made statements. Bayelsa State Minister of Environment has been there. But again, they are constrained because the oil industry have cordoned the place more or less to prevent anyone that is not supposed to be part of it to get close. So even the community people and even the press people are fenced out automatically. So it is more like allowing people to be on their own. They are allowing the communities in the Niger Delta and the Nembe LGA to be on their own, as vulnerable as ever. So it is just more for people like you to help with beaming this information and getting our voices, our complaints out in the public space so that AITEO and all the organizations, the federal agencies responsible will do the needful. It is their duty to make sure that they arrest this particular spillage and then also work towards cleaning up as quickly as possible. We do not want to see another abracadabra because...
Please go ahead.
Hello?
Please go ahead, Your Highness. Please go ahead, Your Highness.
Yes. We do not want to see another abracadabra, which is their stock in trade. And the next point, which the management of AITEO has been emphasizing, is the root cause, the root cause, the root cause. Root cause, as far as I'm concerned in this stage, is to look for a fall guy to put it on, to say, oh, it was one AB or one Abire or one Bubaraye that went to tamper with the wellhead, and that is why there's this blowout. And so for that reason, they shouldn't pay compensation. They shouldn't even clean up until they get to the bottom of it. I believe that we have gone past that stage. This is 2021, and if you have empathy in your soul, and I believe Ruben Abati has empathy. So if AITEO has empathy in their souls, then what they should do is to ensure that the people there, about 45 communities, in fact, the entire LGA and beyond, everywhere downstream in that area is affected by this spillage. It has long gone beyond the boom, and it is flowing down to Brass River and Fishtown and everywhere else. So it is not about Nembe LGA anymore. It's about everywhere else that is downstream, and that has to be done.
Well, thank you very much, Your Highness, King Bubaraye Dakolo, for joining us. Well, very touching incident out there in Nembe, where we'll keep watching developments. Thank you very much indeed.